Hello everyone, how are you? Today I had prepared a video presentation for the summary of chapter 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to answer several important questions that will help us remember or recall all of the information that we had shared throughout 4 weeks. Okay, this video presentation aims the students to be empowered in understanding clearly all of the terms, all of the processes and theories that we had discussed throughout the weeks. We will cover the important parts of every chapter so that it could help you also identify its significance for your future career. So let's start. Okay, so let's start with our first question. The first question is, how is strategic management defined in the chapter and what are its four key attributes? So we mentioned in our chapter 1 that strategic management is a process of analyzing, decision making, and actions undertaken by the corporation to create competitive advantage. Okay, so we want the organization to win in the competition, not just to win, but of course to grow in the industry. And what are the four attributes of the strategic management? Okay, so the first attribute is that the manager should be able to lead, okay, the goal or the resources towards achieving its goal by proper utilizing of the resources. So what are our resources? The money, the materials, the method, the manpower, and other resources. Okay. And secondly, strategic management attribute also is that management or the company should be able to incorporate or include the stakeholders in decision making. So who are our stakeholders? Okay, okay, the people who are working with us, the customers who are buying our products, the suppliers who are in providing a quality raw materials to us. Okay, so that could be the second attributes. And the third attribute is that management should be able to come up with a short-term and long-term objective. Okay, so when we design a strategy, it could foresee the future in the long run and the present situation of the organization. And lastly, the management could be able to identify the difference between effectivity and efficiency. Again, the basic concept of strategic management is that a company or a firm could be able to utilize the resources effectively. When we say effectively, you do whatever it takes, okay, for the company to achieve the goal. How about efficiency? It means that we could be able to utilize our resources at the minimum cost. Okay, we have to minimize the consumption of our raw materials, okay, for us to get or gain high profit. So meaning low expenses and high profit. It could mean efficiency of our management. Next. For our second question, let us give us some brief discussion of the attributes of strategic management. The attributes of strategic management are first, strategy analysis, strategy formulation, and strategy implementation. For strategy analysis, we have to analyze, evaluate, and assess our company's internal environment and external environment, including the organization's overarching goal. Secondly, is after analyzing the environment, we have to formulate a plan or develop a plan, okay, that will help you align your action towards to the present situation of the organization. And the third one is strategy implementation. The keyword for strategy implementation is control. Okay, we need to control our strategy. Okay, we need to have some check and balance. Okay, so we are doing this action. Is it aligned with our goals? So from time to time, we have to evaluate, we have to check if our action is gearing towards to our goal. So after knowing the condition of our firm's strength, weakness, opportunities, and strengths, or the environment of our organization, we could be able to align our strategy. So what are the relationship of these two? The manager. Okay, a manager, okay, should recognize this kind of unforeseen activities, okay, for us to be able to align our ideal strategy to a realized strategy. Okay, so we mentioned that realized strategy is a result, okay, of the evaluation or feedback that we had done through assessing our internal and external environment. So if the manager understand, okay, where these unforeseen forces are coming from, okay, the manager could be able to position the organization in accordance with the situation. The strategies is aligned to the analysis. The strategy will be implemented well, okay, because you develop a plan according to the situation, and the strategy could be able to implement better if you could control your method and your strategy. For our third question, let us explain the concept of stakeholder management. Why shouldn't manager be solely interested in stakeholder management? That is, maximizing the returns for owners of the firms, its shareholders. Okay, remember, stakeholder management is where multiple individuals or groups who have a stake or can influence an organization's performance. Okay, so it includes in the strategic management process. So top managers will be interested in satisfying the needs of shareholders and other shareholders such as customers, suppliers, employees, creditors, government, and the community. Managers who are interested solely in stockholder management are likely to make decisions that satisfy short-term profit objectives. So these decisions might include downsizing, neglect of asset maintenance, or put pressure on suppliers to lower prices. However, these decisions are likely to adversely affect long-term performance. Top managers who pay attention to all stakeholders are less likely to make decisions counter to the firm's objective of long-term profit maximization. Okay, our fourth question is, what is corporate governance and how we can improve it? Corporate governance is defined as the relationship among various participants. And who are our participants? The shareholders, the management, and the board of directors. So they must have a good relationship to determine the right direction and performance of the corporation. How are we going to improve that? Number one, a shareholder must have a representative in the board of directors. If there will be a representative in the board of directors, the top management can ensure that they are going to respond, okay, to the interest of the shareholders, and they will become more socially responsible in addition to earning profits. Managers will respond to and exploit overlapping shareholder interest, which can lead to increase of long-term profits. Okay. Another way on how we can improve the corporate governance is to align managerial incentives, okay, with organizational performance. So this alignment is often done through incentive-based pay or compensation through stock option. Of course, if I am if I am the owner of the corporation, I could not just give money to my employee without something in return. Okay, so the best perks or the best way, okay, that we could establish a good relationship, because as a manager you have to balance the relationship between the owner and the employees. Okay, so what you can do is to offer the employees, okay, to have their stock share or true stock options. By then the corporate management will be happy because they are not going to give the money itself, okay, the money to the employees without any something in return, but it will be a sort of investment, and that could be a win-win situation for the corporate management and for the employees. So that could be the ways on how we can improve the good relationship. It is very important that a manager could be able to take care the relationship between employee and corporate management, to avoid what labor union, to avoid conflict. That's why managers should have a very good characteristic of balancing the relationship of employees to the corporate management or to the owners. For our fifth question is how symbiosis can be achieved. So it's like saying, how can we improve a good relationship between owners and stakeholders? There are two ways. Number one is that a manager should be able to learn the stakeholders' interest and focus on the opportunity overlapping. It means that if a management is going to make a decision, it should benefit both the owners and the stakeholder. For example, if the management wants to increase a price of the product, they should consider if it will affect the customer, the employee, and the owner. Of course, it will be more beneficial for the owner, but for the symbiosis, you are take a lot of consideration for a beneficial aspect for both, or not for all of the stakeholders. And secondly is that we can improve the relationship of the stakeholders and the owners by establishing a good reputation, okay, by uh, building up a good image to the public, to the society, to the politicians, or you create or contribute something to improve the environment. That's why you will see there are a lot of corporate social responsibility program that had been implemented by different organizations, because it would build up a good reputation for the stakeholders and the management. Of course, if I am a buyer and I am environmentally advocate, or I am pro environmental products, I'm going to buy in a company wherein they promote this such kind of environmental friendly advocacy. So that could be how we can improve the good relationship between the stakeholders of an organization. And our sixth question for chapter 1 summary is, why do firms need to have a greater strategic management perspective and empowerment in the strategic management process throughout the organization? Remember, in today's complex and dynamic business environment, top managers do not have all the answers. Rather than top managers will be responsible for communicating their firm strategies to lower level managers, and in turn empower these managers with discretion to respond quickly and appropriately to opportunities as they arise. So, such empowerment enables a firm to respond more quickly to the needs of customers and stakeholders, thus improving competitiveness. For our last question in chapter 1, let us define what is hierarchy of goal, its component, and why is it important to achieve its consistency. When we say hierarchy of goal, it is the level of company goal from the top Okay, these are less specific but have the power, okay, to evoke, and it can compel mental image. And the level up to the level of the bottom line, which are goals that are more specific and measurable. Okay, so what are the three components? So number one, we have organization's vision. Okay, so in this part, it could able to compel and envision the future of the company. Secondly, we have the statement or the mission statement, in which it includes the objectives and the scope of the company activities. It also includes the purpose of or the organization and the basis of competitive advantage. And the last one is strategic objective, which provides the short-term goal and measurable goals that will guide the middle manager to implement its mission statement. So the goal of the owners must be laid down to the employees, and the employees should foresee and do an activities related to the objectives or the mission statement that the corporate management had given. So the employees, stakeholders, and the owners' goal in achieving the company's success should be aligned. If it is aligned, you could be able to come up with the best strategies, okay, that will help them effectively and efficiently utilize company resources in achieving company set goals. There must be a consistency among these goals in order to maximize employee motivation and a sense of equity and fairness when rewards are allocated. Inconsistency among the goals between any level can result in confusion among employees to what the firm values and subsequently to lose the identification of the firm. It will lose their motivation, and it will incur a lot of turnover. Now let's move on to our chapter 2 summary questions. For the first question in our chapter 2 review, why must managers be aware of a firm's external environment? It is very important for a manager to understand its external environment to avoid strategic mistakes. Okay, a company should not only be aware of the internal activities or efficient production, but also they need to anticipate what's happening in the external environment. They need to respond to the opportunities and threats that could be able them to develop the most successful products and services. It's more on being aware on what's happening in your surroundings that could be able for you to create a strategy that will complement to the demand and the needs of the customer and external stakeholders. Our second question is, what is gathering and analyzing competitive intelligence, and why is it important for a firm to engage it? When we say competitive intelligence, is that the capacity of a firm to collect and interpret data on competitors, okay, by defining and understanding the industry and also identifying the customer's strength and weakness. It is not on spying on them, fortune telling, or like piracy, okay, or pirating their information. Okay, it's more on simple data collection or an isolated activity within a firm. So what is the purpose of this competitive intelligence? Okay, for the management to increase awareness of developments in the external environment, and they could be able to increase the quality of strategic decisions. That is competitive intelligence. In chapter 2, we also cover the 6 elements of general environment. So these are demographic, economical, social, technological, global, and political. So this is a basic knowledge of the external environment. When we say demographic, it pertains to the population, the age, the gender, the ethnic, and the geographical contribution. When we say sociocultural, it is related with the values of people, its beliefs, and their lifestyle. Political covers the creation and use of power, okay, like creating a policy for success, employment, environmental protection. Okay, so that is related to the politics. How about the economic? Okay, it's about the level and change in monetary factors like unemployment, foreign exchange, inflation, interest rate, and economic growth. Okay. For our technological, it's more on the impact of technology, like in producing new products and services that had been made by science and technology, like engineering or non-science. Okay. And the last one we have is the global segment. Okay. So it refers to the foreign competition, foreign market opportunities, the market entry strategies, and then the foreign supply opportunities, and some of the legal changes, okay, in treaties like free trade agreements and some regional economic integration. For our next question, let us describe how the 5 forces can use to determine the average expected profitability of the industry. Okay, what are our 5 forces? Number one, we have the threats of new entrants, the bargaining power of buyer, the bargaining power of supplier, the threat of substitute products and services, and the intensity of rivalry among competitors. Of course, if there will be a new entrance or the new entry of a competitor, the tendency is that the firms will limit their ability to raise price. And if there will be a demand, okay, from the customer to lower the price, okay, you could not increase your price because they're going to find new seller. And for the threat in supplier, okay, if the supplier increased the price of raw materials, you could not, okay, lower down your cost. So the tendency is that you have to increase the price of your product. And then another threat is coming from the substitute products. So nowadays you consider a lot of product that had been counterfeited, okay, meaning it being imitated or substituted and selling it for a low price. So that could be one of the threat for the firm. Okay, the firm's raw material should be flexible, but of course should not sacrifice the quality of your product. And the last one is the threat of the intensity of rivalry among competitors. New competitors, new merging competitors with a new idea, brilliant idea, coming from the research and development, results from the survey, results from a different analysis of the external internal environment. Okay, so that could be one of the threat for the company. So if the company will not be able to anticipate and evaluate this kind of changes in external environment, it would have an adverse effect in the profit of the company. For our fifth question for chapter 2 summary, let us explain how the general environment and industry environment are highly related and how can such interrelationships affect the profitability of a firm industry. Okay, remember, the general environment can affect all of the 5 forces in various ways. A growing economy can reduce the intensity of the rivalry within the industry because firms will be scrambling to meet growing demand. There is a detailed explanation of how internet development in the technological segments affects each of the five forces. If there will be new technology, new product, new services, the decision making of the buyer, the decision making of the supplier, and the decision making the of the firm will be adversely affected. That's why it is very important that we have to analyze the eventuality or the occurrence or what's happening outside the firm, okay, so that a manager, okay, or the firm itself could be able to anticipate on how they are going to position their management strategies, capturing the market and outperforming the competitors. For our last question for chapter 2, explain the concept of strategic groups and what are the performance implications. Strategic groups are groups of firms, usually within an industry, that they share similar strategies. The performance implications are that firms can group themselves with close competitors and first identify barriers between groups, and secondly, identify the positions within the industry that are marginal or tenuous. And the third one is chart the directions for future strategic development. And strategic group analysis is more fine-grained way to conduct competitor analysis. They could analyze the environment with the help of other competitors or other group as well. Okay, as the competitive environment of an industry may differ from the competitive environment of the strategic group. For the chapter 3 summary, we discussed about the method of assessing the internal environment of the firm. I'm going to use again various questions to summarize this chapter. The first question for chapter 3 review is describe the primary and support activities in firm's value chain. Firm's value chain consists of a firm's value creating activities, primary activities, and secondary activities. For primary activities, these are sequential activities that pertain to the physical creation of product or service, its sales and transfer to the buyer and its service after sale, including inbound logistic operations, outbound logistics, marketing, sales, and services. How about support activities? Either they add value by themselves or add value through important relationship with both primary activities and other support activities. It includes like procurement, technology development, human resource management, and general administrations. For our second question is how can managers create value by establishing important relationship among the value chain activities both within their firm and between the firm and its customers and suppliers. Okay, relationship among value chain activities can improve firm's operation. It could lead to better quality products or it could lower down the cost. For example, the human resource management practice can encourage transferring employees from one department to another department or across the division because it can improve the employee morale. And like for example in McDonald's, one of the strategy, or I think also in other other food chain, is that they rotate their employees in different station, from pantry to cashier to dining area. Okay, so that could help them learn a different kind of skills. It's not only concentrated in one department, but also they're also being trained in other department. So that could be the way on how a manager can create a value into the relationship. Okay, and also in terms of relationship between inbound logistic and suppliers, it can lead to implementation of just-in-time management. Okay, the right time of delivery, the right products, the right quality, and the good quantity. Okay, it can reduce inventory costs and it can improve product quality. For our third question is the explaining the four criteria for sustainability of competitive advantage. Okay, so this is a part of my question in your quiz. Okay, your answer is correct, like aligning the objectives, incorporating the stakeholders in decision making. But what I am looking for is the strategy characteristics, okay, pertaining to the criteria for sustainability of competitive advantage. Okay, strategic resources that lead to firms' sustainable competitive advantages must be valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and costly to substitute. Because if you are not going to make this kind of strategy, because everybody is doing like aligning their goal, every firm is incorporating their stakeholders in decision making, but it's not, it is normal. Okay, it is not rare. Okay, so what would be the difference? That's why it is very important that your resources must be valuable in order to give the firms competitive advantage. They must be rare, or else competitors will just be able to obtain advantages too. Okay, and the resources must be costly to imitate and costly to find substitute, or else competitors will be able to replicate the competitive advantages. Okay, so that's why international property, intellectual property rights, okay, they are encouraging firms uh, to certify the product, to certify their method as original, and it will be patent, or it will be originally made by them. And if other firms going to copy or imitate that product or that method, they are liable, okay, to face the lawsuit, or a case. Again, your strategy must be original, or it is very difficult to be copied. What are the four factors that limit resources imitation? Like physical uniqueness, path dependency, like the formula, the causal ambiguity, and the social complexity. And they must be costly to substitute, or else competitors will just going to create similar product and services that serves the same function. And those are the criteria of the sustainable competitive advantage. For our fourth question in chapter 3, under what conditions are employees and manager able to appropriate some of the value created by their firm? So how employee and managers can be able to consume firm's earnings. So there are different way, like through salary and perks. Okay, there are four conditions that determine their ability to do so. Number one is employee bargaining power due to their unique skills and abilities. Employee replacement cost. This is due to the rareness of employee skills. The third one is employee exit costs, which is the ability of the employee to find alternative employment and associates with lower ability to appropriate earnings. And the last one is the manager bargaining power due to the manager's information about the integrated understanding of the firm's total operation. That's why, as I had mentioned, that if we are going to make our employee, our managers happy, making our strategies beneficial for them, okay, there's no way that they're going to take advantage with the company resource. apparently they're going to work happily, okay, in return with the benefits that they are enjoying working and that being provided by the organization. So the fifth question for chapter 3 is what are the advantages and disadvantages of conducting a financial ratio analysis? So financial ratio analysis is a tool used to obtain the financial, okay, performance of the company. So there are three comparisons that they can do. Okay, first is the historical comparison, or they're going to check the trends in various financial ratios over time. Secondly is the comparison within the industry norms, which enables the firm to determine whether or not it looks competitive within the industry. And the third comparison is the competitors, which provides a set of benchmarks that track the firm's competitiveness. What are the limitations of financial ratios? Number one is the quality and accuracy of the data that had been gathered through comparison. Okay, and secondly is that, of course, it is the task of financial department and the managers could not able to use the ratio or interpret the ratio if they are not skilled to do that. It could not give them an advantage to lead or provide direction to the organization's competitive advantages. That's why to balance the situation, okay, the financial department of an organization should provide a relevant interpretation of the financial situation of the company, so that the manager as well should have some a sort of skills in financial interpretation. It could complement the strategy of a manager to the financial standing of the company. And the last part of the chapter 3 is the concept of balanced scorecard and what are its main advantage. The balanced scorecard is a method of evaluating a firm's performance using performance measure from internal, innovations and learning, financial and customer perspective. How do they evaluate the internal environment? Of course, with the use of some criteria to assess the ability of the firm's organization to efficiently and effectively create products and services that satisfy customers' need. For the innovation, it also evaluates perspective, includes measures of the firm's ability to change operations in order to keep up with the dynamic business environment. So what is the advantage of using this balanced scorecard? The advantage of the balanced scorecard are that it incorporates more information about the firm operations than financial ratio analysis. It's not only concentrated with financial but the overall performance of the company. Okay, it also pertains to the firm's basis for sustainable competitive advantage. Therefore, it should be a better indicator of future organizational success. Okay, I think that would complete our summary for chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Okay, so we mentioned in chapter 1 the strategic management as creative competitive advantage for the company. For the second chapter, we mentioned the assessment of external environment as a way of creating competitive advantages. And lastly, we discussed the chapter 3 in assessing the internal environment of the firm. Okay, so by this kind of chapter summary, answering the brief questions, I hope that you could be able now to understand the concept and the perspective of strategic management. Okay, in your case study, in your strategy highlights or spotlight, you already identify most of the specific strategy that is very functional or useful that leads the organizations to be on the top list of Fortune and different magazine online. Okay, so it means that building a unique, a rare, a difficult to imitate, a costly to substitute, or a difficult to substitute. Okay, it could guarantee the position of the company to be in a competitive advantage. And these strategies must be sustainable because strategic management is a continuous process of developing company resources, developing and enhancing a company's organization's operations, okay, towards goal, wherein their goal is being renewed, okay, for a certain period of time. Okay, so if you have any again further questions for us to close this chapter 1, 2, and 3, and we can move on to the second part of midterm that will be included in your exam, chapter 4, 5, and 6, until we meet on May 4. Okay, I hope that you'll be able to understand everything. Okay, thank you, and this is your professor, Dr. Christine Joy Simpao, and hope to see you soon. Have a nice day, everyone.